is a collective bargaining agreement with the Minneapolis Association of Fire Chiefs. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Palmisano has moved items 1 through 15 with the item number 10. She has moved us amended language for the charter language amendment referral. And does anyone want to take anything off for discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Glidden.
Aye.
There are 11 ayes.
Next, we have the zoning and planning report by Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 4 items from zoning and planning. Item number 1 is approval of a rezoning at 2900 Pleasant Avenue South in order to allow for a multi-family residential development. Item number 2 is a rezoning at 2008 through 2018 Lindo Avenue South to allow for a new mixed-use building with 113 dwelling units. Item number 3 is passage of an ordinance amending our zoning code to create and expand a pedestrian-oriented overlay district on Hennepin Avenue South, Lindell Avenue South, Lagoon, and Lake Streets to add more regulations that make new development more pedestrian-oriented. And item number 4 is approving a zoning map amendment for the rezoning of parcels in the Lowry Hill East rezoning study and updating our zoning code as follows. And I will move items 1 through 4. I just want to make a brief comment on item number 4.
All right. Why don't you go ahead, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 4 is a relatively small rezoning study in the Lowry Hill East neighborhood, but it has spanned 12 years and 4 council members from the 10th Ward. So it is significant that it's coming forward today with basic consensus in the community. After a lot of work by CPED staff, Brian Schaefer added this to his already busy workload, and I'm very grateful for all of the time he took at evening meetings with my constituents and for those in the community who were able to come together in this, what I think is a really great compromise solution. It is bringing the zoning down, right-sizing the zoning in this neighborhood from R6. It creates maximum flexibility for people to use existing properties, and we've made a minor adjustment through the Zoning and Planning Committee that reduces the number of non-conforming properties because that was creating a lot of concern in the community. So some of the larger apartment buildings that date to the 70s will now be conforming because they will be at R5 zoning. So there's a lot of sort of detail there, but generally speaking, again, happy to bring forward a long-awaited compromise on the zoning in the Lowry Hill East neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. So Councilmember Bender has moved items 1 through 4. Any additional discussion? I'm not seeing any. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilmember Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Kano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Warsami.
Aye.
Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Glidden.
Aye.
There are 11 ayes.
Next, we have the introduction and referral calendar. The first item is a proposed charter amendment, and pursuant to notice, Glidden moves to introduce an ordinance amending the Minneapolis City Charter for first reading and referral to the Intergovernmental Relations Committee for public hearing to be held December 1st, 2016, providing for revisions to the plain language charter. And this introduction also lists multiple sections that will be affected. Items 1 through 6 list those particular sections. And I always forget, do I call the roll on these? No. Okay. So this has been moved. Is there a second? It's not a notice, it's an introduction. Oh, I just need a voice vote. Okay, thank you. I always need some direction, so thank you, Mr. Carl. All in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed. Next, we have one additional introduction, which is pursuant to notice. Glidden moves to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 40 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to administration workplace regulations for first reading, and referral to the Committee of the Whole exempting certain state subsidized extended employment programs from coverage under the requirements of Chapter 40. And discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we have resolutions. The first is a Hubert White honorary resolution, passage of a resolution declaring November 18th, 2016, Hubert White Day. Any discussion on that? All in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we have item number 2, 2016 Pinky Swear Day honorary resolution celebrating National Pinky Swear Day. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we have the 2016 Transgender Awareness Month honorary resolution approving the month of November 2016 to be recognized as Transgender Awareness Month in the city of Minneapolis. All those in approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we have solidarity with the Muslim community resolution condemning violence and hate speech. And all in approval of that resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And next, we have the resolution that was added by Councilmember Gordon at the beginning of the meeting, the One Minneapolis resolution, passage of a resolution standing with all members of our One Minneapolis. And I will invite Councilmember Gordon to introduce the resolution.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. And I would like to read the resolution. This resolution, I think it's safe to say, was drafted in response to the national election. And also in support, I think, of a powerful statement that the mayor put out after that as well. It is entitled, Standing with All Members of Our One Minneapolis. Whereas the Muslim and Jewish members of our community are welcome in our city and have the same right to religious freedom as any other person, Christians and people of faith or of no faith. And whereas the City Council of the City of Minneapolis has adopted a resolution condemning violence and hate speech, expressing solidarity with Muslims and all those targeted for their ethnicity, race, or religion today. And whereas the immigrant and refugee members of our community, documented or undocumented, bring hope, optimism, and entrepreneurial spirit, along with the diversity of cultural expression that keeps our city vibrant. And whereas Title II, Chapter 19 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances states that the city does not operate its programs for the purpose of enforcing federal immigration laws, and that public safety officials shall not undertake any law enforcement action for the purpose of detecting the presence of undocumented persons or to verify immigrant status, including but not limited to questioning any person or persons about their immigration status. And whereas the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer members of our community have the right to express love, commitment, and gender identity with equal protection from the law. And whereas the City Council of the City of Minneapolis adopted a resolution approving the month of November 16th to be recognized as Transgender Awareness Month in the City of Minneapolis on November 18th today. And whereas people of color in Minneapolis are working to challenge and overcome the legacy of institutional racism and need all community members to stand together to clearly and unapologetically focus on dismantling systems of oppression at all levels, not creating new ones. And whereas the indigenous peoples of Minneapolis have survived repeated destructive genocidal acts and yet retain the rights of sovereign nations to defend ancestral lands, resources, languages, cultures, and the seventh generation. And whereas the women of Minneapolis deserve equality and respect at home, in the workplace, and in public. And whereas the disabled people of Minneapolis deserve respect and equal accommodation and inclusion in all spaces. And whereas the people of Minneapolis recognize that people of all races, ethnicities, and backgrounds all do better when we all do better together. And whereas all members of our community deserve to live healthy, happy, rewarding lives free of fear as befits our status as human beings. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City of Minneapolis and the City Council that the City of Minneapolis stands with all members of our community. We reject the politics of division, bigotry, hate, and fear. We will fight for the rights, freedoms, and interests of all members of our community, no matter the color of our skin, our gender, the way we worship, where we were born, our sexual orientation, or any other identity. We are and will continue to be one Minneapolis. Be it further resolved that the City Council and Mayor reaffirm our commitment to be a sanctuary city in which we build and maintain positive relations between city employees and all the members of the communities we serve. Be it further resolved that the City of Minneapolis encourages all other units of government to join us in standing with all members of our community.
Thank you, Councilmember Gordon. That resolution has been moved. Is there any discussion or comment on the resolution? Okay. I will. All right. Councilmember Bender.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just want to thank Councilmember Gordon very much for bringing this forward. As I've been speaking with my constituents over the past week, I've heard many express concern, but also a willingness to get involved. And I wanted to note that our Civil Rights Director Corbel, had sent out something earlier this week specific to what to do if someone is the victim of or witness of a hate crime or any sort of hateful rhetoric in our community. And I think that's really important to note. I know many of my neighborhood organization boards and individual members of the community are sort of ready to go to do whatever they can to stand with their neighbors. And so I have been sharing that information with all of them. Thank you.
And I've put myself in queue. I also want to thank Councilmember Gordon for authoring this resolution, which I will say is somewhat of the City Council counterpart to public statements that have been already made by the Mayor of Minneapolis, that the City of Minneapolis is not going to step away from our values, ordinances that we have already passed, or that we may pass in the future in light of threats from those in the federal government of taking away our federal funding if we do not comply with directives. I think there's never been a more important time for us who are elected to represent the people of Minneapolis and for those at other levels of government to represent their constituents fully, to stick by values that we know are important to our democracy, and to be able to continue to be part of the political discourse in speaking up when something is not right. We have a history in our country that we are not always proud of. Mayor Hodges made a public statement yesterday about comments that have been made about the Japanese internment camps. This is one example, a very important example for us to remember of a very dark time in our history. It is not the only dark time, but one particular dark time. And it is frightening to me to think that this is being normalized by being mentioned by public figures at the national level as something that might be repeated in our history in the future. And in my opinion, we cannot allow that kind of rhetoric to be normalized, to normalize statements that target residents on because of their race, their religion, their political beliefs, their sex, and so on and so forth. And that is seeming to becoming more and more regular. And it is incumbent upon us to stand firm, to speak out, and make sure that we are speaking on behalf of our residents and with our residents in the city of Minneapolis. Councilmember Gordon.
I think Councilmember Kano also wanted to speak, and she has a reply. I just wanted to thank my colleagues here. Everybody had an opportunity to review this, and some of the council offices worked closely on the resolution, and I really appreciated that. And the council president isn't here, but I had the opportunity to sit down with her and work on this language, and she had input on it as well. And I know that she, as well as Councilmember Quincy, are both supportive of this. I also just wanted to note that I think that hopefully this gives voice to some of the concerns and the feelings of the people of Minneapolis, and I think it does. I had an opportunity to participate in one of the protests after the election that started in the second ward. People probably heard about it. Maybe some of you were also there. But clearly people are worried about one another. They want to make sure that we stand together and protect one another. It was quite moving marching down Cedar Avenue in the 6th Ward and seeing how many immigrants and refugees were feeling comforted just by the protest. And I think it's really important that we reach out now. I've heard stories about immigrants who are panicking and crying and wondering what's going to happen and what they're going to do. And I think it's really important that even if there are changes at other levels of government, that we stand strong and we remain consistent with the principles that I think we all represent. And I think it's appropriate that we come up with this gesture now. It's hard to know what the next 4 years are going to bring, but it's good to know that we're going to be together and standing with one another as we see.
Thank you, Councilmember Kano, and then Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Yesterday I attended the deportation hearing of one of our DREAM activists here in Minneapolis, and it was a very significant time for all of us to reflect on the realities moving forward of how we're going to have to, be at our most alert stance and position moving forward, because there's just going to be more of these cases coming down in the coming weeks and months and years. So I want to thank Councilmember Cam Gordon for leading on this resolution. And I think now more than ever, the role of cities is going to matter in standing up for and protecting our communities, and in continuing to advance our very progressive legacy, our Wilstonian legacy, our social justice efforts that some of us here in the council support. And so looking forward, I think that's going to shape a lot of our conversations as a council in terms of what we're willing to do to really step up and be able to uplift our immigrant community in new and different ways that we've never been challenged to do before. And I think we'll see some of those votes come down on December 7th when we have our budget approval, and when some of these initiatives will be brought forward to see how this council can better represent immigrant communities and take up a different type of role in addressing not only the fear, but the very direct and aggressive policies that are being directed towards our immigrant, refugee, people of color communities. And looking forward, we know that the community will be organizing more. We know that the advocacy groups are coming together, and in previous months, and perhaps even a year or so ago, the council had supported work around the DACA and DAPA initiatives that President Obama had put into motion. And there was a staff work group that was created to help different departments come together and talk about that issue and see ways that our municipality could be supportive. And I've asked our staff to pick up that work again and to look at what other cities are doing, have those conversations internally, work with us as council members to figure out what is it that we're going to be able to do, and what is the new role that we're going to have to fulfill as a municipality to prepare for some of the most, I think, horrific actions in our lifetimes. And on that note, I want to invite people to a meeting and a conversation that Councilmember Glidden spearheaded, which is supported by many of us in the council, and it's supported by many, many partners in the community, as well as state elected officials. And it is happening on Tuesday, November 22nd, and it'll be from 5:30 to 8:30 at Sabathani Community Center, located at 310 East 38th Street. And it is titled United in Love and Action, and it's a response to hate, bigotry, and misogyny in our community. So I hope that many of you as council members can attend. I hope that you let us know ahead of time in case there's any open rule issues and open meeting issues. And then I hope that many of our community members can come, help us build a plan to respond to the raids and deportations, help us build a coordinated response to the hate crimes that we are seeing happening, even on Election Day. I got an email from a constituent saying that a Latina woman was hit in the head by someone who ran after her saying, go back to Colombia. And this was just on election day. And since then, we know that there's been many groups that have been receiving reports of hate crimes. So I look forward to working with everyone in a more united form in the courageous and bold manner that we will need to work in the next year.
Councilmember Frye.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be as brief as possible. Thank you, Councilmember Gordon, for this timely and necessary resolution. Thank you to your office as well. I think it's important that we do speak out in these times. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been thinking about some words that my great aunt used to say, who got out of Germany just prior and during the Holocaust. And what she used to say is that we all need to be keenly aware of what's happening, so that we're not in a situation where we're a frog in a pot of water that's slowly but surely getting hotter and hotter until it's boiling, and then it's dead. And she talks about being in Germany, and at first there was a lot of anti-Semitism, and then she was receiving a whole lot of derogatory comments, and then she wasn't able to shop in certain stores, and then finally she wasn't able to march in the May Day parade as a student. And that's around the time when she got out. And it wasn't long later that Kristallnacht occurred, and people were getting shipped off to concentration camps. And while certainly we aren't at that point now, and I do think that it's necessary to be keenly aware. And as a Jew, I've never felt anything but at home in Minneapolis. Now, that being said, we do have an anti-Semitic and a racist history. We do. And the first two comments that I've heard that directed towards me that have been anti-Semitic since the time I moved here occurred in the last week and a half. And I don't want to over glorify what those comments were about or grandstand about them, but it's an impact, and in the sense that we need to be keenly aware. I think we all need to be keenly aware for each other.
Councilmember Andrew Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the comments of all of my colleagues. I'll just say that I'm a pretty young person, but in my life, I've never seen such division in this country before. And I sure hope that the new leaders at a federal and certainly at a state legislator level use this moment and this opportunity to bring people together and not further divide the nation with attempts at pitting cities against rural areas, with attempts at pitting some members of our community against others, and instead work with folks across the aisle on good issues that we can all agree on. And that would be my only hope out of this, is that we don't see that divide grow, but that we see people step up to the responsibility and the moment and try to bring each other together. And because, a lot of important things are at stake, especially when we look at and think about LGA funding and the impact that it would have. And if we think about as well, for instance, how our sanctuary city status helps progress public safety, because when folks are witness to crimes or victims of crimes, we don't want them to hesitate calling 911. So I would just offer those words to our new leaders out there.
Councilmember Borsami.
Thank you very much, Council Vice President Glidden, and I would like to thank Council Member Cam Gordon for the resolution. And as someone who's a student of history and a student of European history, I'd like to thank Councilmember Jacob Frye for the comments that he made, because what we're seeing right now is very similar to what happened in the last century. You're seeing the vilification of an entire religion, done casually, without any remorse, and done by now the elected president of the United States. And the nominated Attorney General of the United States, the nominated CIA Chief of the United States, the nominated Head of National Security Advisor to the President of the elect of the United States. These individuals and many more who will be in the cabinet, and many more who are heading our country, who will be heading our country next month or next couple of months, have suggested that we should have a registry for American Muslims. Suggested that there's a precedent that was done in history when Japanese Americans were put in camps, the Second World War, innocent Japanese Americans. So we are in a very difficult and very dangerous moment. And as someone who cannot change his skin color, nor change his name, and who's raising 3 black children in the city of Minneapolis, it brings back haunting memories of what happened to people just like myself less than a century ago, who didn't do anything, who were innocent, and who are being blamed for the actions of very few individuals. So this is a very dangerous time, and I thank Councilmember Cam Gordon for the resolution. I'd like to thank also Councilmember Vice President Glidden for the work she's done on this, and for bringing the community together, and for this meeting that she's hosting on Tuesday. I'd like to thank all my colleagues, because you've welcomed me, you've worked with me, you've been very respectful, even though there's been some biases here and there. But I would say overall, people have been very supportive of myself and my community, and I'd like to appreciate everything everybody's done for us. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I just wanted to extend my gratitude towards Councilmember Gordon for the resolution, and for my colleagues for supporting the resolution. And, my colleague, Councilmember Warsame, mentioned this Muslim registry, and just the talk of that and the justification for that. And, I grew up in the Central Valley area where these camps were. And these were just horrific and embarrassing. And, I think about all this stuff, and I just think, my goodness, I mean, these were some of the darkest times in American history. And to see and hear folks justify their stupidity by pointing to these things as justification just terrifies me. And, I don't know about other folks, and, I just want to be very simple about this, but I will fight like hell to not allow anything like that to ever happen again in American history, but specifically in Minneapolis, because that should never happen. That sort of discrimination, that sort of hate should not exist in our world today. So I will leave it at that.
So with that, I am not seeing any further discussion requested. I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues, and I'm proud to work with you. All in approval of this resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next, we have new business, and I will read through these items. The first is noisy and unruly assemblies ordinance. Council President Johnson gives notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending Title 15, Chapter 389 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to offenses, miscellaneous noise, amending regulations related to noisy and unruly assemblies. Item number 2. Information Governance Ordinance. Councilmember Palmisano gives notice of intent to introduce at the next regular meeting of the City Council the subject matter of an ordinance amending Title II of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances relating to administration, adding a new Chapter 41 relating to information governance. Item number 3, as a reminder, was deleted by Councilmember Frye. With that, we have announcements Are there any announcements council members wish to make? And I'll just say thank you again to Councilmember Cano for making the announcement about the event on November 22nd. I'm not seeing any announcements, and so our next item is to adjourn to the Minneapolis Community Development Agency Board of Commissioners. I forgot exactly how to do that.
Madam Vice President, also just to note for the schedule that after the MCDA board adjourns, this council will adjourn to its next session, which is November 30th at 6:05 in this chamber, at which point we will conduct a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2017 levy and budget.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I thought I was supposed to do that after the MCDA. So we are adjourned now to the Minneapolis Community Development Agency Board of Commissioners. On approval, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Good morning.
Goodman.
Welcome to this meeting of the Minneapolis Community Development Agency's Board of Commissioners. We have an agenda of 3 items this morning. They include accepting the minutes of the regular meeting on August 5th, approving our conduit bond policy that was approved already in our CD committee, and adopting amended bylaws of the MCDA and approving amendments to the administrative procedure for preparing and approving and amending MCDA program guidelines. What is the Commission's pleasure? Commissioner Fry.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move items 1 through 3.
Items 1 through 3 have been moved for approval. Are there comments or questions on any of the items? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Fry.
Aye.
Palmisano.
Aye.
Gordon.
Aye.
Cano.
Aye.
Reich.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Glidden.
Aye.
Yang.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Quincy is absent. Warsami.
Aye.
Barb Johnson is absent. Chair Goodman.
Aye.
There are 11 ayes.
Those items are approved. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.
Thank you. And we're adjourned to November 30th, 2016 at 6:05 p.m. for the purpose of conducting the public hearing on the 2017 levy and budget. Thank you.